Okay. Okay, that was good. I liked that season. Season 3 of Felicity, I thought was enjoyable. Uh, Big improvement over season 2. This guy, not a big fan of the second season of Felicity, but the third season embraced the more soapy elements. Um, Near the end, the tenderness was really palpable in a way that I totally appreciated. Thought it was romantic. It was ultimately more satisfying than the second season. And the narrative design was pretty cool. It's pretty good. I do have criticisms, of course. Felicity is far from a perfect show, but this was a good season. Um, Almost as good as the first. One of my big criticisms from season 2 that I think is still there is that J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves are far too in love with either Felicity Porter or Carrie Russell or, dare I say, both of them. Because Felicity can't seem to really do anything that's too terrible. In season 1, Felicity was almost the great mistake maker. It was like her superpower, and I loved that kind of naivety, that impulsive naivety that she had, because those were like kind of character flaws that were adorable and were super relatable and made for interesting drama. In the third season, once again, Felicity can't really do anything that's too terrible. Case in point, within the first few episodes, she blacks out at a frat party after Julie leaves, and you're led to believe that she had a wild one night stand with some fucking douchebag frat boy. And big shocker, she didn't. Apparently, they just cuddled. Like, that's the only fucking frat hookup that ended with just not even cuddling. They just slept next to each other in bed, right? They tried to distance sexual activity as much as possible. Like, even though she got completely naked at the party itself and leapt into bed with I thought that that was going to be kind of interesting and cool, a way that Felicity handles depression or abandonment because Julie did leave. I thought it was going to be interesting. Like Felicity, oh shit, in these first couple episodes, J.J. Abrams is making me look like an idiot, making people who had those same criticisms look like a complete fool by having Felicity do something that's totally disagreeable and selfish and self-destructive, but no. No, she didn't actually sleep with the frat guy. In fact, the frat guy was like, we didn't have sex at all. Like, okay, like you have to, like, absolutely no sex. Still a little sick. And like it's fine if you're in love with the hero of your show. It's fine if you're in love with the lead of your show. A lot of other showrunners or filmmakers have done so, but it's starting to become narratively unfair to the other people. Like just a few episodes later, Elena hooks up with the random hot guy from across the hall, cheats on Tracy, and actually has sex with him. So it's like Elena gets to be kind of vilified in this scenario. Elena gets to make that great mistake of unfaithfulness and betrayal, but our golden girl Felicity doesn't. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too at the expense of the other characters in the piece. It starts to become narratively unfair. Like, don't paint Elena in with the same bad light that you're about to paint Felicity, but you fucking pussied out on. I wish Felicity did have a wild one night stand with a frat boy, um, because then just would have been so interesting. Would have been interesting to see Felicity be self-destructive, like truly self-destructive, like going out there and just ruining the thing that she had with Ben because she felt abandoned by Julie and she felt like a terrible friend for somehow letting her down. Like she blamed Julie's departure on her. That's true. Julie does leave early on in this season. We say goodbye to Amy Jo Johnson, every 90s boy's favorite fucking girl in the world, our all of our first crush. She's so formative to all of us. And I thought she was pretty good on Felicity, specifically, particularly season 1 of Felicity. They did some fascinating things with her character. Now, there are, I think, a handful of reasons why she left. She says that it's because her mother died, actually, before the first season started, and she never really felt like she was able to process it. And it kind of makes sense. You can see that in her performance in those early episodes. There's something hidden and sad about Julie, about her expressions, about the way that she composes or presents herself. It made for a very interesting performance, but Amy Jo Johnson wanted to leave the show in order to properly mourn and process her mother's past, like get over her own grief. Yeah, and which is totally respectable and fine. Another reason, or at least a reason, or at least a justification for it, because I feel the same way that I found a quote from J.J. Abrams, or I found some blurb from him where he was talking about Amy Jo Johnson leaving. He said, "We were never really able to give Julie the storyline she deserves due to budget constraints." And you can tell that. I mean, in the you knew that we were supposed to get some episodes with her biological father, and we never did because of budget constraints. Never ever did. There are so many different storylines. I think that we were introducing, flirting with, kind of teasing, but we were never able to really go there with Julie. So I understand not only why Amy Jo Johnson left because of those emotional feelings, but there must have been artistic ones as well. Like Julie was underrepresented when it came to storylines, and it sucks that it's due to budget constraints because Julie was one of the most fascinating and captivating characters of the show's first season. In the second season, you can really start to see missed opportunities and a lot of missed storylines. But no matter what, I'm gonna miss Amy Jo Johnson on this show. She was great, and you do feel her absence. You do. They try to make up for it with this random new fucking British girl. Okay, what is up with the WB with shows like Dawson's Creek and Felicity, who just assume that everybody has some like random alt girl roommate with a very strong British accent with some baggage like in college? Why does the WB think that? Whatever, I don't care. Once again, I'm almost calling this show Ben. Like, I love Felicity, but Ben to me is the interesting character. And I almost just want to call it Covington. Like, he's the best. And when I talk about narrative design, his structure was perfect. His storylines were perfectly attached to each other and built and like formed and completely fleshed out. Like it was really cool. For instance, I loved the Molly, James, and Ben storyline that actually spun out of Ben's alcoholic father, which directly led to Avery. That is such cohesive narrative of soap of teen soap. It's just like fucking beautifully designed. J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, and company. Ben's storylines just felt so wonderfully designed. The only thing that Ben Covington is truly good at is being a fantasy, is being Felicity's fantasy. And even Felicity is starting to low key become concerned with Ben's lack of ambition, drive, purpose. What Ben is, he's the champion of lost causes. I really loved the whole James shooting Avery at the party thing. And at first I thought, oh, he didn't shoot one of our principal cast members? That's a fucking cop out, dude. That's fucking cheap, dude. Fucking man up. JJ. But then I saw what they did with Avery's character. And Kristen Lehman's performance was excellent, but I thought Avery was so cool. Such a cool character. Now that's Avery stepped out of a Bret Easton Ellis novel and they got to hang out with the bloody burn diaries of a resurrected socialite, Avery. I loved hanging out with her. I loved being around her psychology and the way that Ben was uh, both repelled and captivated by it, especially the connection that they had, like Ben was there to save her life. And how threatened Felicity seemed. And rightfully so, obviously. Everything Felicity does is rightfully so. That's the that's the issue with Felicity. But Ben, we started to do some really cool things, right? Let's start at the very beginning, honestly, when his father comes to town, played by John Ritter. Philosophically, our fathers are all role models for God. And that is analytically true, then what does this tell us about Ben's perception of his own God or his own father? His own father is his own perception of God, being this person who you can never truly trust, who will hurt you, seemingly without provocation, without any sort of rhyme or reason, but because they are slaves to a greater drug, to a greater toxin. His father comes to town and tries to kiss Felicity, tries to like assault Felicity. Is incredibly inappropriate sexually with Felicity, to say the least, and completely betrays him entirely. And Ben, the champion of lost causes, there are quite a few times where he wants to believe his father so bad and help him get better. And his father tells him about this like meeting for friends of or friends and family of addicted people. And that's where he actually runs into Molly, Felicity's new roommate. She's there because she's addicted to an addict, being James, her boyfriend, who is highly abusive, who coerces and manipulates her into doing all sorts of self destructive things like smoking crystal meth. And there you have it, another lost cause for Ben to be all consumed by. He's all consumed by lost causes because it makes him feel necessary or helpful. Because part of why he loves Felicity so much, and part of what makes Felicity so again incredible as a young woman, is that she's pretty well put together. She doesn't need a Superman. She doesn't need a superhero. And Ben finds himself finding his purpose from, like, Noah would call them damsels in distress, but I call them lost causes. I think that there's something really virtuous about constantly fighting for lost causes, especially like troubled girls. And he's all consumed by that purpose, which is truly high stakes, great deal of pressure, super intense, like emergency social interaction. And he feels like he helped Molly. He feels like he helped Molly get away from James, and then James shows up to the party with a gun, and it truly is a bit terrifying and super morbid. James walking into that party with that gun and shooting, and then he shoots Avery, someone we hadn't even met yet, someone who just happened to be standing right behind Noel, who was dancing with Molly. And then Noel spins out into his own Jean Paul Sartre fucking nausea inspired existential crisis. Meanwhile, Ben falls into another lost cause to champion and fight for and try to find purpose within until he kind of realizes that it's that emergency situation that helps him feel worthwhile. And I think that Ben is extremely interesting in those very intense and dark and morbid situations, like in the back of that ambulance with Avery holding her while she dies and comes back to life, as I call her, the resurrected socialite that I didn't know that I needed in my life, but I certainly do. I loved Avery. She was phenomenal to be around. I loved her to death. But we could be looking at a character flaw within Ben. I mean, I think that's why he was drawn to certain situations that pulls him away from Felicity in in certain respects because he does feel more, not only more masculine, but most likely just more useful, more purposeful when he's helping someone who's extremely damaged, and that's something that Felicity isn't. And that's also what causes Ben to have the most pain, is when he's betrayed by those things. But that's what purpose is. Purpose is pain, purpose is intensity. Um, And purpose is difficult. It's hard, but it's passionate and tender. This is still an extremely tender show. The new opening titles fucking blow, suck, dick, hate them. I love how much Ben says dick, by the way. He calls everyone a dick. I think like every other episode he's calling someone a dick. My favorite usage of Ben saying dick was someone was going over percentages and Ben obviously felt intimidated intellectually and he's like, Why are you doing all these stats, man?" "Well, 60% of myself thinks that you're a dick." It's not bad. It's not bad, yo. Sometimes the comedy was better this season. It's fucking exhausting dating Felicity Porter. That's what Ben Covington has taught me. Noel Crane, in his never ending supply of supermodel love interests, the guy has nothing to ever complain about. What the fuck is he complaining about? This season, he fucking made out with Tyra Banks. The last season it was Amy Smart. Oh, and Allie Landry, the goddamn perfect Doritos girl. First season Jennifer Garner. What is this fucking IT fucking tech nerd? There's nothing to ever complain about. What are you talking about, Noel? He's like, I don't want to be the loser friend anymore. Motherfucker, you were tongue deep in fucking Tyra Banks 2 episodes ago. Shut the fuck up. You married Allie Landry. The Doritos. Shut the fuck up, Noel. Shut up, writers. Just fuck off. So a huge part of this show is Noel versus Ben. Ben versus Noel. I'm Team Ben. Always, forever. Think Scott Speedman is a remarkably handsome guy, and I think his psychology, his philosophy, ever since season 1, is evolving and getting a bit more interesting. And in season 3, I think it might be the best for Ben's philosophy, for his like kind of damaged psychology, or it's not damaged. He's really complicated. He's just attracted to all of the damaged people and damaged ideas out there, and he kind of lacks the ability to truly articulate it, but his purpose is putting people back together. I think he finally figured it out by the end of season 3, and I hope we stay with this whole EMT training thing for Ben. I think that's perfect. That's what he's supposed to do. Be there for people at their absolute worst and put them back together. And God, that's great. That's great. And it bleeds into the entire psychology of his character and helps explain so many different things that he's done. Really helps to explain a lot of the more disagreeable things within his character as well. Like a lot of the mistakes he made back in season 1 uh, make a lot more sense when you realize just how attracted to catastrophic people, especially catastrophic women, that he is. And there's something about Felicity that just screams stability that Ben just doesn't feel helpful with. And I mean that is interesting. That is cool. Noel, I was playing around with trying to compare them because Noel she met in college and Ben is the high school fantasy. And so it's like Ben represents the past and Noel represents the future, like represents college. College represents what you're going to be as an adult, what you're going to do with the rest of your life. And high school represents the rest of your life. High school is the past, college is the future. So Ben is the past and Noel is the future. And the way that Felicity interacts with both of them is telling of her feelings about both the past and the future. And Felicity, I think, has to be that present. She has to be the ever presence of the present. She is constantly present, or in between the two, which makes her the living embodiment of the present, the physical poetry of the present in motion. If she's living in between the two, constantly in a tug of war battle romantically between the past and the present. I think that's the most interesting way to view it. It's just that Ben is just a much more dynamic character than Noel. I like Noel. Noel is funny. Noel is charming. Scott Foley is very charismatic. I like Noel. Ben, oh my God, I just love him. I'm just like in love with Ben Covington. That's such a good character. Noel, for me, can't even compete. Uh, but to me, Ben is so interesting. I mean, and we can play with this theory of Ben representing the past and Noel representing the future. Especially Ben with like what we've covered so far, well, at least what I've posited, like theorized so far about Ben's character, what I've analyzed within it. A lot of the damages that we all have, a lot of the trauma that we have, obviously is born of the past, obviously comes from the past. And Ben is really focused on the hurt of the past, especially within the hurt that other people have felt and kept buried within themselves that stem or like grows out of the past. Whereas Noel he seems a lot more innocent than Ben, because the future. It's an optimistic show. Felicity is optimistic, and it's interesting. I would say that Ben, the past, is pessimist, whereas Noel, the future, is optimistic. And don't want to say more civilized, but Ben is violent. And that's part of his character. Ben is violent. He is damaged. He is violent. He gets into quite a few fights. Noel, no, I think the only fight he got into was with Ben. For fuck's sake. Noel represents possibility. But most significantly, Noel represents the future, and Felicity's future is bright. It's optimistic. I'm Team Ben though. Team Ben is interesting. Ben is the unexpected, and Ben is seemingly passionate as well. I do like Sean and Megan together. They are our joke couple, you know. And I was really scared when the season started because at the end of season two, I'm like, people like Noel and Sean, Megan, they're just going to become cartoons because they're already cartoonish at the end of season two. And I was really nervous when fucking Noel showed up with those ridiculous blonde highlights and Sean and Megan were doing their little fucking Laurel and Hardy skits every fucking 2 seconds, you know. Like I was like, oh no, they're all cartoons, but uh, J.J. Abrams and his team were able to keep it centered or find the center again because Noel became a lot more tender. I think right right after he met Tyra Banks, lucky fuck, and Sean and Megan, they went to couples counseling. There was quite a few tender moments with them, which was nice coming from the obvious like comedic couple. It was nice. The show is is truly still extremely sensitive and very tender. I like it. Season three was much better than season two. It gave me quite a bit more to think about. It was shorter. It's only 17 episodes. Season two, I think, was 23, and I know that seasons one and four are 22 episodes. Not entirely sure why season three was cut short. I couldn't really find any info on it. It must have just been a huge budgetary constraint. Must not have believed too much in the property because they still believed that Felicity's short hair destroyed everything when that really wasn't true. Carrie Russell is a stunner, man. Doesn't matter if it's long or short hair. I prefer the long hair, but once again, that doesn't fucking matter. She's great. Um, Always easy on the eyes. Ridiculously good actress too. Like I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle of my analyzation. Um, Carrie Russell is so good, exceptional on the show. I might make fun of J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves for obviously falling head over heels in love with her portrayal of Felicity, but I don't blame them. Like I can see how that happened because she's great. She's so good, and I think breathes a whole entirely unique sense of life into Felicity, and it probably brought that character to life in a way that JJ and Matt just couldn't even comprehend, like blew them away. I get it. I get it. Carrie Russell's excellent. Incredible lead. This show would not work at all if, you know, Felicity would not work if Felicity herself wasn't extraordinary to watch. She's incredible. Incredible on the show. I've only got one season left. Senior year for everybody. Well, Noel graduated this year in the last episode of the season. Um, Last summer ever, I think was the title of it. And yeah, I guess it is for like college kids, right? That's the last summer ever. Interesting way to think of it. Really, really cool. Really cool. But yeah, season four coming to the end. Coming to the end of Felicity. And I've enjoyed it. I focused a lot on Ben, but to be honest, he's the one who is the most confrontational philosophically and psychologically. He's the most confrontational character that there is, and I love being confronted by Ben. He's a fascinating character, and I hope to do even more of that in season four. Like I'm excited to see what Ben does every time. Always excited to see how Ben will handle and process information. See how he'll behave in any sort of dynamic or in any sort of scene. I'm always excited to see how he'll be because writers are very good at giving everyone their own unique reactions. Everyone seems to react, at least in season three, at least authentic to their character. You know, it's really well designed. It This season was good. This season was good. Yeah, I really liked it. It's an excellent piece of Y2K television.